Okay, it's like Bill said, this my presentation covers 2 trips to California, May in 2018 and in June of 2021. The May 2018 was the Southern California, and the more recent one was the northern areas. California has been one of our favorite places to visit for many years. It's got interesting things, not just railroading. And then May of 28 trip, we decided to go back and visit some of our favorite haunts and explore some new ones. We landed at LA airport and picked up a rental car. We explored around a little bit and ended up at Chatsworth Station on the Southern Pacific coastline in the late afternoon. And we photographed a couple Metrolink trains.
What's it about that message?
We got a message on right in the middle of the screen. Just continue, or is that to me or what?
We aren't. I'm not seeing it, so maybe.
Just push continue. All right.
Yeah.
All right. It went away anyway.
Okay.
Okay. And then don't laugh, but we went to Disneyland. Disneyland actually does have a couple of interesting trains. They have a monorail system, which goes from the hotel over to the park, which we of course took. And we of course rode it, did some Dutch door riding, just opened the window, took a couple of shots. And they also have a fake steam engine. It's a Disneyland Railroad. And as we rode it, of course, and as I was pulling into the station, the monorail passed overhead. So I got a pretty nice over and under shot. And here's a close up of the, I guess, a 240 amusement park type engine they have under number 3. And they also have the Big Thunder Mountain Railroad.
Just a second. I'm admitting a couple people. Okay, sorry, I missed that.
You want me to stop for a while?
No, I'm fine. Yeah.
Okay. Then I saw Big Thunder Mountain Railroad and took a couple of shots.
Okay. There. Okay.
And I told Teresa it's a pretty fast and curvy railroad.
My mistake. $10 to.
Okay.
And I wrote it. I went ahead and wrote it, and it was a little more faster and vigorous than I thought it was, but it was an interesting trip.
Mhm.
Okay, also not too far is Knott's Berry Farm. And they have, what was running that day was Rio Grande Southern number 41, 3-foot gauge 280, originally built for the Denver and Rio Grande, no W in that. Baldwin in 1881. When it was on the Denver and Rio Grande, it was number 409. And the guy who started about Knott's Berry Farm was Walter Knott, and he bought this engine in 1951. And the berries they grow, berries, which are pretty interesting berries. And there, of course, you have anything. You have berry soda, and berry pie, and berry everything, boysenberry rather. So, and right there at the station, you get some pretty nice shots. Of course, we rode it. It's about a mile loop. And from the train, you can shoot a lot of interesting things. This is engine number 340. The Denver and Rio Grande Western number 340, a 3-foot gauge, another Baldwin 280. And this is really neat. Next, Rio Grande Southern Galloping Goose number 3. I guess a lot of people here know what a Galloping Goose is, but it was a series of 7 rail cars designated by Motors by the railroad, built between 1931 and 1936 by the Rio Grande Southern Railroad, operated until the end of the service on the line in the early 1950s. Well, the reason why they got these motors going because they had to, they want to continue with the mail contract and provide some service, passenger service on the lines they had. But operating a fully staffed steam engine and all that was very expensive. They were losing money, so they came up with this brilliant idea. in doing that. So there's Cerberus all over the country. In the last program I presented, there was another we saw. It also runs, and they put it out in flatbed truck and take it various 3-foot gauge lines to the west. Okay, then we did some regular service. The first place I went to was Frost. That's the place on the railroad called Frost. It's just southeast of Victorville. There's a meet over and under underpass with the 2 lines. But north, geographically, they north and south. It's this is the Union Pacific's Los Angeles and Salt Lake line, and the other one's the former Santa Fe line.
Alex,
rare-
they're both BNSF.
He said they both be in it.
Okay, well, I looked at I wasn't sure. I looked at the atlas and it said UP from there. That's how they get. They go to Daggett. They go to Daggett, 9 miles east of Barstow. That's what the atlas from that era says. So, and we stayed there a while. We just trained every few minutes. As soon as we got there, there was an over and under shot we got. So I'm saying UP has trackage rights over it because we saw several UP trains.
Yeah, Santa Fe owns it. UPS trackage rights.
Okay. And you can see how filthy the power is on the UP versus the BNSF, which is another reason why I get turned off going out west or the UP. And you're gonna see some real dogs on Cajon Pass in a few minutes. A lot of stacks. That seems to be the lifeblood of the railroads nowadays out west. Well, the front engine looks pretty nice. It's just fairly new, but the rest of them and really dogs, really faded.
I think those stacks are getting stacked up at Long Beach, aren't they? No truck drivers.
Yeah, well, there's off the port of Long Beach in the ocean, a 3-week waiting time now to unload your ships.
Alex, did you see any evidence of highway construction through the area?
Yeah, I'll get to that.
Okay.
I've seen enough of that. All right, and then I went to Victorville. This is the former, it's the Cemex concrete cement plant. Now it's CEMEX. Years ago, it had high hood Fairbanks Morse switchers. It was quite a draw for rail fans. I knew they wouldn't be there. I looked over the fence and all that. I saw a couple of EMD switchers, so we moved on. So I talked to some other people and said that was really neat where they had the Fairbanks Morse units. I don't know if you, Bob, or any other people have been around a while have ever got to there to see those.
Yeah, I did once.
Okay, and then there's just I guess got a couple random shots. I didn't see a whole lot going on. A lot of scenery in the Victorville area. Got an eastbound BNSF regular manifest, and then I got a trailer, the same location, trailer train. Okay, and then I went to Barstow. This is a must-see place when you go out there. It's a really nice Santa Fe and Harvey House station. It was built in 1911 as Casa del Desertio. It was for the Santa Fe with the Harvey House in it, because they didn't stop and have they didn't have dining cars back then. Currently serves as an Amtrak station and a government building with its housing offices and the Chamber of Commerce. And the sign out front says it's a registered California historical landmark.
Has any part of the dining service been preserved for museum purposes there?
No,
Okay.
here's what it looks like inside. I chucked these through the window there. Pretty nondescript.
Yeah, there's also in part of that a Route 66 museum.
Here it is. This is a FP45, passenger FP45. 20 years ago, they put it there, it was freshly painted. And believe me, it looked a lot better back then than it does now, being out in the desert sun. UPSD 40. Looks better than some of the engines we saw running on their regular service. Okay, and this is a Baldwin VO 1000. It was built by Baldwin in 1941 for the Santa Fe. And when you go to Barstow, there's a Santa Fe caboose. And when you go to Barstow, whether you like McDonald's or not, you got to visit this place. It's called Barstow Station. It's been there a long time, right on 66. And what's so neat about it, if they ever have their old vintage passenger cars, or I guess old passenger cars that have been converted. Even got the Dutch door, as you can see, and the diaphragms and all that on the end. They're gutted and have filled with seats. So the reason why, but Barstow is quite a railroad town. And they have a yard there. I thought it was pretty neat. A BNSF B unit that coupled to a regular cab unit. And right east of town, interesting markings in the pavement, right up next to the Santa Fe main. And just a couple of minutes later, got the shot I really wanted. As you can see, BNSF runs long trains with a lot of power, 5 units, what we saw a lot of. And this is Daggett. This is where I was just telling you that the UP line goes north up from the LA basin and it gets on its own line, which is the Los Angeles and Salt Lake line to Salt Lake, and leaves the Santa Fe main, which is now BNSF. And this is downtown this is the post office on the left and the police station's on the right. It's like I say, it's a very old town. It's seen its better days, fenced off. I'll probably keep the vagrants out so they won't burn it down. Probably going to make some historic preservation out of it.
But the joy got to it at some point.
Yep. Anyway, I'm standing on the UP line looking south, and the line on the distance is the Santa Fe. And I set up to get some action there. Just a few minutes later, and another BNS stack train heading west. Came roaring by at about 70. In the UP, I shot this with a long lens because I was set up to shoot, but it came by, approaching the connection. And it stays on BNSF down into LA. Okay, now here's the construction. A lot of rail fans from the east are kind of upset because that real popular viewing spot at the summit of Cajon Pass is undergoing heavy construction. I think there's a Route 138 rather, and there it is on the left, the original route, and it's gotten very steep and winding. And but at the top of it was the very ideal place to shoot trains in either direction. And right in the middle there is the new grading for the new right-of-way for the new road. We got there in the morning, the lighting was not good. So, but there was construction going on. We came back in the afternoon, there's no equipment sitting there. So anyway, apparently right back where the bulldozer is, I guess right there, you'll be able to shoot some shots when the new road, or maybe from the old road, I don't know. But it was, that was 3 years ago. It's probably completed by now. So we went ahead, we decided to come back in the afternoon, the lighting is better, so we went all over Cajon Pass. It's a random places and just set up at places where they had good lighting, but this afternoon shot, as you can see, it's still is ideal, very, very good for photography. And this is at Mormon Rocks. This is a set of light UP engines heading west, and it's about the only really clean UP power we saw the whole trip. It's just filthy. A lot of them you're not going to see because they didn't photograph them, and they have graffiti not only on the sides of the engines but on the nose. So it's just not worth taking. It's not worth going out there anymore, I don't think. And there's all this in the Mormon Rocks. You can just walk around with a long lens, get some nice shots. There's an eastbound. And over the distance is the Southern Pacific. It's also, the lighting wasn't that good, but you can see that the lead units is absolutely terrible. It's really annoying to see that the American flags are really beat up looking now, very disgraceful looking. A little bit better lighting for the westbound UP in the afternoon. And so I went to the summit, and for years, after they had that horrible derailment in about 1986, that they came roaring down Cajon Pass, out of control. And unfortunately, about 2 or 3 crew members on the SP were killed. I think I got that straight, but they posted it. They thought it was vandalism or sabotage, and they posted security up here for years at the summit. And you could maybe drive up a little ways and get a few shots where maybe a nice guy wouldn't run you off, but they realized what you wanted. But there was no security up here at all, and the gate was open to the other area where the lights are at night.
Alex, was that building that I think was named Chard Walker, that agent occupied? Was that preserved, that wooden building? Up at the top?
I don't think so. That's really old. I don't know, but
Okay.
I don't know if anybody else knows. I know it's quite historic. He had some nice shots of Santa Fe trains with F units and all that. Before the cutoff, which was what's the cutoff? Palmdale, not Palmdale. So here's another shot down at near Mormon Rocks. Right behind me is Route 138. And then they went to call it Sullivan's Curve. Finally, the train on the left is on the what's the name of the bypass? Wow, they built in 1967 on the SP.
Palmdale Cutoff.
Palmdale Cutoff. That's right. All right, that train was. I listened to the scanner, and they couldn't get the computer to work, and they sent a crew down there, and it was there for hours, and it was disabled because of a bug in the computer. But down the other track, quite busy. Again, see how clean the BNS power is. Another one. There's a lot of stack traffic, a lot of it. And I'm standing on the right of way of the Palmdale Cutoff. Finally got a UP engine, a UP train with fairly clean power, newer power. Going away shot. In the late afternoon, the sun gets pretty good for this line. The upper line, no, you can still see the train still sitting there. And a pickup truck showed up, and the guys went in and they worked on it for hours. It got dark. We went to the motel, and it was gone the next morning. But while we're there, there's a double track that's up to this switch. There's a double track, and this UP train all of a sudden showed up, and it stopped. it couldn't go anywhere because the other train's blocking the line. And in the morning, we got some better shots of morning at White Mormon Rocks with fairly clean UP power. And another BNSF stack train. And this is a eastbound coming on Route 138. And they had DPUs on the rear, which we used to call helpers. They're distributed power units now. And we got a westbound UP unit train of some kind. And they had the DPU unit on the rear also, providing dynamic braking here. And then you can see that I'm standing right above the Palmdale cutoff where that train was sitting there for a long time. And in the afternoon, shots were pretty good for westbounds on either line, actually. And you got DPUs on the rear. And then on the lower line, an eastbound. And this is really one of the prettiest BNS engines I saw a whole trip. Okay, went to Tehachapi. That's another hot up place for rail fans. The old station there is a museum, partial museum, and they have like community meetings inside. No Amtrak, well, there's no passenger trains on this line anymore. That's the other end. This is the east end. But they have quite an array of vintage signals there. You can see the wigwag in the center, and you got semaphores and searchlight signals. Quite a conglomeration of stuff. SP lower quadrant. Dwarf signal, dwarf semaphore. And this thing here now, I had to do some research on this. I guess some of you guys know what this is. This when the maintenance away or anybody want to go doing a track inspection, they use this. The device here was trackside, and they could look at it and determine by the position of the semaphore whether the line they wanted to go out on was occupied or not. If anybody has any additional comment, feel free to chime in.
Do they have by any chance, a water column they saved for that tank I saw in one of your photos?
I mean, at the museum.
Right, yeah.
I don't know. Say, what's your question?
Just wondered if they saved a water column for that water tank I saw in the background, in one of your
I
photos.
did notice it. I did not notice it.
Okay.
I don't guess there's any of these operating anywhere now. I think the last one, Cajon Pass, was removed, I guess. Okay, then we got the Tehachapi Loop late in the afternoon. I know that the shot is in the morning. You know, you get the train coming out of the tunnel, then going around the loop and crossing over itself, but it was too late for that. So we went to the backside of the Tehachapi Loop and found another possibility. And as soon as we got here and got the car parked, I heard a train approaching, and as it looked out, it was a clean BNSF train. Got it going into the tunnel. And then over itself, that's the same train, you know, it goes around this is tunnel number 9. It goes over and crosses over itself. And had DPUs on the rear. And a few minutes later, got the DPUs shoving on the rear. Okay, here's next to the next morning now. You can see it's really treed in, really treed in. A lot of this is private property. It's a ranch. You used to be able to drive in and get really right next to the tunnel and all that, but so many rail fans have just messed things up. The rancher got tired of it and just, they're not welcome anymore. You have to get up further and use telephoto lens to get the shots. It's really unfortunate. They left trash there and all. Anyway, we weren't there for a few minutes. Here comes the first one. Come around the loop. Really slow. Coming out the tunnel. And going over itself.
Wonder if any couplers have ever been pulled because of all that extra friction on that.
Oh, I'm sure, especially back in the old days. I say, I've been doing this to here that long, but this is where we shot from. This is a well-worn path made by rail fans to get up the higher elevation to get above the trees. You know, you come down to the couple chainsaw crew, but you know, that will never happen. But as the trees get taller, I guess you have to go to resort to a drone. And between trains, a lot of wildlife. There's some type of lizard. They're everywhere. And one more. I've kind of missed them coming out, but there's another one crossing over itself at the loop. We didn't stay here too long, but we heard on the scanner a UP train approaching, so we went down just on overlook at tunnel number 10 and got them coming out, going really slow.
Is that track on the right, new track?
Yep, that's long sighting.
Thank you.
Yep. You can see the construction right in the middle, up top. They did a lot of excavation to put that track in. And there's, you know, this engine, this is probably one of the best looking engines. Even the flag on the flank looked nice.
5 years ago, they put that track in.
Okay, and he had DPUs on the rear pushing too. Okay, we're gonna diverge a little bit from rail fanning. If you go to Monterey, you got to go down to Cannery Row. If you read Steinbeck's books, he talked about Cannery Row, and there's very little change in Monterey Canning Company, where they used to go out and get, I mean, tons and tons and tons of sardines and can them. And guess what? They're gone. They've done fished them out. Here's Cannery Row. That's Teresa in a blue jacket on the right. It's kind of nippy even for May. The several non-rail fanning things we did here. We went to Monterey Aquarium. Of course, you know, there's sea otters and the orphan. They couldn't adapt to the wild, so they have quite a few of them on display there at the aquarium, and they got wild ones outside just in the Pacific Ocean. One thing I always like to do, I like to take whale watching cruises when we go here. When I worked for the Department of Navy, I sent me here once or twice a year. And Teresa came most of the time and did a lot of sightseeing while we're in the area. So signed up for boat cruise. You notice everybody's jacking it up. These are all harbor seals just chilling out. And there's, you know, they're even though these boats are competitors, they radio each other when you see a big school of humpbacks. All we only saw was humpbacks. And we went out to the Monterey Canyon, which is a mile deep. And it's one of the deepest canyons in the Pacific area. But they haven't done a lot of studies. They haven't mapped out the whole area there yet. They're going to, maybe it's deeper. This is why they call them humpbacks. And they're very plentiful. We saw quite a bit. Didn't see any blues or grays, but his mom and a baby. Okay, we went over the Southern Pacific's coastline, what goes between Los Angeles and San Francisco. And there was a station in Goleta, California. Of course, they moved it. There's every little town had a depot, and they just no longer want them. And SP just probably like to demolish them. But rail preservation has saved them and moved them to safer places. There's several of them. And ever since I started reading Trains magazines, other magazines, I was always intrigued by seeing these type of railroad crossing posts with the Southern Pacific and Western Pacific and other railroads that was stenciled on the vertical part. So I've never seen one in the east, like in Tessie or B&O or any of them on the east, but they're there out there in the west. So there was one preserved here. I was very, very intrigued in seeing one. And they have their Goleta station, rather large station, preserved real well. I'll give you some details about it.
Isn't that near the Gaviota Beach where the?
Yeah, we're coming there in just a minute.
Okay, line, okay.
Okay, all right, it's built by the Southern Pacific in 1901 during the completion of the coach route joining San Francisco and Los Angeles. And this depot is listed on the National Register of Historical Places. And there are a lot of artifacts. I'm not going to show you pictures of all of them, but a lot of artifacts inside. A really beautiful station, well preserved. Interior views. And there was a guy there, very knowledgeable, and they have a lot of, they have this other artifacts, all Southern Pacific there. Wigwag. And they have about a 1 foot gauge train that goes around a short loop. It's got a Briggs and Stratton engine in it, so it's not really powerful, but you know, we had to ride it. Didn't get a lot of shots, but they have a turntable there. I don't know why, but they have a turntable there. Here's a shot I got. That's Teresa in her hat on the right. Here. Okay, then we went to Gaviota Trestle. And as you can see around there, right where the red truck is, it's gated, it's fenced off. It was too dangerous to go out on. Kind of annoying because we planned, this is some of the best shots. So we were going to go out there in hopes of going out and shooting the Coach Starlight, and any commuter train just showed up. We couldn't get into it. And we knew the northbound Coach Starlight was on time, and you know, was not too far away from its originating point. So we got set up. We climbed this hill on the right and got set up, got a fairly good shot.
Pelicans are a lot on that thing. I was out there last month, and the pelicans are lining that that wharf, whatever you call it.
Maybe they're being protected. You know how California is. And we went down, and this is a pretty unpleasant. I'd had surgery on my foot. The doctor told me to keep it dry. I was all bandaged up. I kept it bandaged up every morning. And we walked down the beach to get to southbound. And there's like to the right, there's a creek, and some kids had dammed it up. And what? Well, whatever. Well, they undammed it, and I couldn't get across. I just walked right through it. And 1 foot, nasty 1 foot deep water to get back to the car. So we had to get in the car. Well, there's a couple other things. So we waited for some trains. We waited a couple hours. And I actually waited for the darn water to go down so I didn't have to get my foot wet. But there's all kinds of critters there, and the people feed them, so they come up to you wanting a handout. I got in the car, went down Highway 101, the coastal highway, which goes right along the Pacific Ocean. And in the distance, I saw a headlight. So I pulled over, and just as the grab shot, banged off this shot of a Pacific surfliner heading north. The lighting was pretty good. I was very, this grab shot, I was lucky to get this shot. Okay, then we went to Chatsworth State Park. It's where the old famed Santa Susana line is. That's again, it's on the Southern Pacific's coastline. And this, I get this off of Wikipedia. The trail that went over Santa Susana Pass was originally a route constructed by 3 Native American tribes, and it was in use for 8,000 years. And then European settlers constructed a new wagon route bypassing the old route and deterring double slide, which was opened in 1895. And then the Southern Pacific came along, and they had to construct 3 tunnels through the pass in 1900, and it took them years and years to do it, but they finally got the line open between Los Angeles and San Francisco in 1904. And today, this line is owned by the Union Pacific and is used by Amtrak and Metroliner commuter trains and occasional freight. And as you know, it's shut down right now. We went to Chatsworth State Park to get here and parked the car. And it's a long, rugged ride trip to get up here. This is the first day, and we couldn't get up high enough, and we had other things to do. But we got a southbound Amtrak Pacific Surfliner, and then a northbound one. And came back the next day and got up a little higher. Not this one, the next one. Yeah, got up a little higher to walk in. And I went here about 20 years ago with slides, and it just, things have changed, a lot of signs. One sign said, beware, don't, be careful when you go up here. There's mountain lions and rattlesnakes. So I was very careful. I didn't take a picture of the sign because somebody had taken a shotgun and shot it, and I could barely make it out. But anyway, this is a northbound Pacific Surfliner, which goes between San Diego and LA.
Alex, I think Richard had his hand up for some reason. I don't know if that was intentional, if he wanted to say something,
Go ahead, Richard.
Or maybe, he just, he's struggling with mute button, it looks like,
Well, Richard, you're going to probably see this
Okay.
program at the Old Dominion RE meeting in a couple of months, so you can ask all the questions you want.
Alex, this is north of LA, not between San Diego and LA.
Yeah, you're right, between LA and San Francisco. So I finally got the shot I really want was the Coast Starlight, again, running on time. Of course, rail fans call it Coast Star Late. Like Amtrak Coast Star Late because it runs late. But anyway, I got them coming through the canyon there. It just gives you an idea how much excavation the SP did with 1900 era equipment to get this line open. And I got the shot of one. Then I noticed those 2 posts right in the middle of the center of the second year, these 2 posts I didn't notice before. And saw them again. And the only freight I saw was a UP engine came light. And then he's heading south. And then he came back north with a wood car. So anyway, back to those posts right there. They weren't there when it was 20 years ago. I looked at them more carefully. So I zoomed out my telephoto, and obviously there were security cameras galore with loudspeaker. And they just don't like trespassers on the track because the tunnels and the trains come down, they drift down great quietly. And there are a lot of illegals there. And the local people said they give you warnings in Spanish and English to get the heck off the track. So anyhow, I got my shots and left. Okay, then we went to Fillmore and Western Railroad. Unfortunately, it's I think it's defunct now. They were told to leave. This is on Facebook. It was a railroad owned by this company and operates on tracks owned by the Ventura County Transportation Commission. The track was originally the Southern Pacific Main but then the Southern Pacific did a better route and bypassed it, and it became a spur, or passing siding, a spur rather, because to keep the business on the track going. Okay, the Fillmore the Western's rolling stock and right away are frequently used for the filming of television series, motion pictures, and commercials, and also a location for private and commercial still photography. The majority of Fillmore and Western rolling stock was acquired from the four major studios in Hollywood: 20th Century Fox, Paramount, Warner Brothers, and MGM. Okay, this location was used in more than 400 movie, TV, commercial shots. Okay, movie shot here was Throw Mama from the Train, Three Amigos, you know, one with Steve Martin and all, Seabiscuit, Get Smart, Rails and Ties, and Race to Witch Mountain. Also television series of CSI, NCIS, and Criminal Minds, and also operates a year-round tourist line. But in 2014, the Ventura County Transportation Commission began fighting in court to evict the railroad. They said they just cost, they have to maintain the tracks, and it costs them too much money. Same old story. But they do have a pretty nice collection of stuff. This is a Duluth and Northeastern 280, operational, built by the Baldwin Locomotive Works in 1913. It's currently the railroad's only operable steam engine. They have a lot of junk sitting around, all used probably in movies, for different movies. They can paint them up real quick to make them look like anything you want. I guess this is Southern Pacific. Doesn't have any other to the right. I know it's not Southern Railway. And they got this F unit number 100. It's originally built in 1949 in Chicago North and Western, number 4068. Close-up shot of it. And this is an excursion train, which they only had 2 tickets left when we showed up. Very well patronized train. And on the rear, a GP 35, which is built in 1965 as Pennsylvania Railroad number 2339. Okay, there's only about a 5 mile, they can go east or west of here. We went east to a town of Piru, Piru. Just the really nice conditions inside. They have dinner trains. We just took a regular excursion train. They weren't operating a dinner train the day we were on it. It's really a class act. Some of the stuff we found, I don't have information on everything. There's another steam engine. The only steam engine was the first one I showed was operational. This one here is not running. Nice dome car. Shot from the Dutch door. Orange grows. There are orange grows everywhere. And this here, I didn't know what it was. It's artichokes. I've never seen artichokes grown. But there's acres and acres of artichokes being grown.
Where is this in California again, Alex? Where are you?
Fillmore, California.
Okay, is that inland, I guess, or yes, it is.
No, it's I didn't write that down.
Well, I was just saying that I was wondering that those orange groves have been pushed back from where they used to be, way back east. So yeah, okay.
It's
Well,
Ventura. It's Ventura County, inland.
Yeah, Ventura. Yeah, but they ship by truck mostly, but they say when they're starting to harvest when they were there, and it's very, very active. I mean, there's lots of oranges being harvested there. And this is one of the packing houses after the harvest, and I guess they ship them in boxes. Is the end of the line of Piru, you can see in the right of the states, PIRU is is push pull, and this is GP 35, which is on the opposite end of our train, is the FU. Another shot of our train on the east end. Okay, and the reason why they stop here, the line goes a little bit further, but it doesn't, it used to be connected on both ends, but only one end now. This is Bennett's honey farm and have quite a different varieties of honey there. Here's the other end of the train just before we left. There's Teresa sampling the honey. You can little things of wooden spoons. You can sample the honey because we have to buy stuff for neighbors who watch our house while we're gone, and we watch house for them. They bring us stuff, weird stuff. Okay, then we went to on the surf line at San Clemente. This is the San Clemente station. Amtrak doesn't stop there. Metrolink trains do. And the rail line is up on the left, all those rocks, so that's not natural. This Santa Fe built this line in 1880, began in 1880. And they call it the surf line because this line was built right along the surf of the Pacific Ocean, some places 100 feet or less. You know, they've had some washouts and some bad flooding. It's on the Facebook today. Mark Glucksman was down there. He took some shots of BNSF side dump car or tilt cars, putting new riprap down there. Okay, the BNSF operates a freight over this line. I guess Autorex and a few other things, but it's funny. It was their line. It was Santa Fe's and became BNSF, and now it belongs to the government. So they have trackage rights over it. I've gotten very few freights over there. I've been there maybe 3 or 4 times in the last 20 years. I've gotten very few freights on it. Okay, let's see. And this is just south of the station. You can see the station's upper right. And that's an Amtrak Pacific Surfliner heading towards San Diego. Metrolink train. I mean, it's got to be one of the ugliest trains. It looks like something from Pakistan or something. And just not a whole lot of people in the roofs, but it's still an ugly looking train. It's another Pacific Surfliner. They're very busy. And that's why they call it the surf line. And late in the evening, it gets some really unusual lighting there. It's another Pacific Surfliner with a newer engine heading south, and gives you an idea how close the Pacific Ocean is to the line.
Those engines have all been sold to Chicago Metro.
Yeah, I saw them. I saw they had the Metro.
They're running
Amtrak-
all Chargers now.
Yeah. So we saw them out there. Matter of fact, we took Amtrak to the NRHS convention last month, took the Capital Limited to Chicago, and then we had, I deliberately got a long layover, 7-hour layover. I didn't want to take the next train up to the Hiawatha up to Milwaukee, so we laid over. And we actually did our sightseeing. We had a Charger on our train, push pull, but it was a push position all the way to Milwaukee. I know there's the real Milwaukee Hiawatha's. They ran with 440s with 80-inch drivers. And they ran 100 miles an hour on that line behind steam with jointed rail.
They were then succeeded by Streamline Hudson's.
Yep.
Does anybody know what happened to the EMD? What were they, F-125s?
I'll have to look it up.
I think Metrolink's running those.
I wouldn't think so. They were pretty much brand new, and they were, I thought, purchased for this service.
No, they were purchased. The F-125s, they're all Metrolink. This service is being run with Chargers that are owned by the state of
Alright.
California.
Well,
Yeah, if you want to see F-125, that would be the Metrolink train that replaced that ugly Pakistani looking thing.
you're gonna see one in a minute. Another one of those things that are, when we saw them, I said, well, I think Chris Grunster said, recognize those. They look familiar. He said, yeah, they just covered over Amtrak and put Metro on it and left everything the same. All right, there's one that's god awful. That's the 125, right?
No, that's not.
F-59.
I'm not sure what that, I forget what that is, but the F-125s are silver, match those cars right behind it.
Okay, Alex and everybody, those are the same things that Mark has and that VRE has. They're MPI.
Yes.
Yeah, 32s, I think.
No, they're 36s.
36.
Right. The rail fans call them rocket ships.
Okay, that's, palm trees are really growing up in front of the Santa Fe Depot at San Diego. And so you can't get a completely unobstructed shot, but you really have to work for it. Now, it's this station was built. The original station was built in 1887, and the Santa Fe came back and it was finished in 1915 to accommodate visitors to the Panama-California Exposition. Even though it's Santa Fe has no affiliation with it. There's a lot of vestiges of the Santa Fe still around. And you look back in the movies in the 40s and 50s, people, you see that the station, the interior has changed very little, including the lights overhead.
Where was that tile with the Santa Fe logo on a wall, Alex? Or what?
On the wall, yeah. And the main trains you see here now are the San Diego trolleys. It opened up in July of 1981. And has 53 stations and covers 53 miles. Blue line, orange line, and green line. But the original cars that were there when it opened up, they're gone. They've been replaced with the newer ones. There's one set at Rockville Trolley Museum in Oversonia next to East Broad Top. The current equipment is all Siemens fleet of light rail vehicles made in Germany. And I'm surprised to see this yellow one. I guess that's just vinyl wrap on it. Yeah, advertisement, I guess. And the other operator is Amtrak. And that's got single level equipment. I think that is a Surflander. I'm not sure. It's not the no, it's, I don't know what it is.
They had a couple sets of that, but they were leased, so they're gone now. There's a third operator there too, which is the Coaster, the North County.
Yeah, here it comes right now. And the commuter coaster commuter trains operate between Oceanside right here, San Diego, 41 miles, makes 8 stops. So there's 3 different railroads operate on here. So I'm pretty, I guess they have enough passengers to make it profitable. Bombardier Transportation currently operates a service on contract with the coaster's owner, the North County Transit District. Okay, they currently run with five EMD F40, 2 EMD F59 PHIs, and 9 new Siemens SC-44 Chargers, and all bi-level equipment. And this is at the end of the line, northern end of the line at Oceanside, getting ready to go south. And we photographed several coaster trains, and just about all of them had F-40s, which surprised us. Okay, this one's northbound, a few miles south of Oceanside, crossing Agua Hedionda Canal at Carlsbad. And you really can't chase it. The parallel roads are too congested. And we got an interesting meet between a southbound coaster and a northbound Amtrak Pacific Surfliner near Cardiff. We were just, getting ready, go to get something to eat for breakfast, and saw the signal was green. So here's the meet. And finally, not too far from Del Mar, we finally saw a northbound that had the newer engine on it. The F59 PHI. Okay, and also on Oceanside, it makes it 4 different railroads. This is the Sprinter. The Sprinter was all DMU engine operated commuter rail line, which operates between the cities of Oceanside and Escondido, and runs on the old Santa Fe Escondido branch, which is 22 miles. And the Santa Fe didn't want it anymore. They had no customers. And this is the first passenger train operating on this line since 1946. And also there Simon's DMUs also. Okay, this shot here was taking the Sprinter train departing the facility. In about 200 feet, this train's going to transfer onto the Escondido line. And got a few more shots of Sprinters. The lighting was directly overhead, so it wasn't very good for photography. And then we're getting ready to walk across the street, and I saw a Sprinter and a Pacific Surfliner crossing, leaving the station at the same time. So banged off this shot. And I don't know, I guess we're maybe 50 feet away from the road. I think when we started walk back, this guy on a bicycle said, "Well, you're lucky cop didn't come by." I said, "Why?" He says, "They hate people up here and doing this, and they'll give you a ticket for trespassing." I said, "Oh, well." Okay, this is the trip we took in May of this year. We flew into Las Vegas. It was a big circle trip through 4 states, and I'm actually standing in Arizona right now, so don't cuss me out. But this train's crossing from California into Arizona at Topac on the over to California, Colorado River. Okay, we had apparently, I was listening to the scanner that's apparently doing some track work, so we decided to go into California and take some shots.
Is that the old San Diego and Eastern line?
Santa Fe Transcon. Oh, this is a Topac. This is out in the middle of nowhere, actually. It's where it crosses between California and Arizona.
The Needles subdivision.
Yeah, Needles, yeah.
No, it's not. It's not the Needles subdivision. It's the
Seligman.
Seligman sub.
Yeah, well, we went to the town of Needles to get something to eat. Boy, what a dump that place was. All these abandoned motels, all these abandoned places to eat. Of course, you had McDonald's, and so you ate McDonald's. That's the only option I had.
What was the temperature?
I'll show you.
Go to the Wagon Wheel Hotel restaurant in Needles. That's the
Yeah.
place to eat.
Well, I don't know how long we were there. We asked because I couldn't see anything.
Yeah.
And I asked, and the woman said, "The only place that's open now is McDonald's." Oh, well,
Yeah.
because we wanted to get at least a good meal.
Yeah, I was there about, 18 months ago, Bob? We met you. and
Okay,
Dave Bussey.
well, we
That's the place to go, the Wagon Wheel.
We were there
Okay,
in
no-
February of 2019.
Was it open?
Yeah, we had dinner
Okay.
with Jim and his brother
Bill?
Jay and
Okay.
Dwayne Litzenberger.
So anyway, we went across into California. And again, the lighting wasn't the best. This is really, really the desert. And shot a few trains. like I said, they were talking about track work and there weren't gonna be many trains, so we just, when you went a few miles in, there you go, at 2:44 in the afternoon, it was 101 degrees. But
What,
it's a dry heat. I've heard that over and over again.
is May, you said?
Yeah, early June. We were in Death Valley a couple weeks later, it was 108. But now it's been 120 this year later on. We weren't there in July or August. But that's death, yeah. And this is one of the better shots. This is there. It's between Needles and Topak. Overhead
It's a
bridge.
Park Moabi area.
Yeah. Nice scenery, but the middle of the day is just, we had other fish to fry. We were gonna go up to Grand Canyon and all that, and that's a long, long haul. So you all in this area doing some photography too?
Oh, yeah, I've been out in the Mojave Desert probably 6, 7, 8 times. Going January, February, or March.
This is really disappointing. This is a Donner Pass, and what a disappointment. Just didn't see any trains. This is in Norden now. About 30 years ago, again, we weren't that familiar, didn't do a lot of homework before we went. We went to Norden and there were wooden snow sheds. And, being young, dumb and stupid, we walked into them and they opened up really big inside and there was a turntable inside the snow shed. And I got slides up there, look for them. And they were for the turn, the steam engines because they're very steep. This is one of the, I think, the summit of Donner Pass, and they used to even be able to turn cab forwards here. And then inside there was tunnels and all that went to these crew quarters and places to eat and all that, so the crews could go anywhere in this complex without having to go out in the weather. Sometimes the snow's like 20 feet deep here. But there's been special programs on TV about the shows, how it was in there, mostly black and white, but pretty neat coverage of how the turntables were used and all that. Anyway, with the helpers came up from Roseville and they cut them away at Norden. They turned around and went back down to Roseville. Also, a very large crew quarters here and a cook shack here. And they were demolished. All this was demolished in the 1900s, and they replaced with just 2 concrete snow sheds. This one here on the right. So this is where it gets weird. So you walked up to them, and the one on the right had just like a overseas carrier, and I know it's locked. So got kind of adventures. I figured no trains was coming. You're sitting on the track. I took one shot here. Oh yeah, before we got here, it was a crossing of a maintenance away guy, and I asked him for a lineup. He said there was an eastbound coming within an hour. So he banged off these shots and got set up. Here's the other one. It's completely closed up. These are the concrete ones that apparently replaced the wood ones, and then they replaced again a double track line with new concrete snow sheds here. And we set up here for the eastbound. Just a few minutes later, it popped out. And we chased it along I-80, and we banged off a few shots here and there. This is obviously an Autorack train. And it had a pair of DMUs on the rear, kind of nasty looking. Again, the lighting was terrible by this time. That's the only freight we saw after 2 days. So the rest of the action that we saw was the San Francisco Zephyr. And here it is about 8 miles east of Truckee, crossing the Truckee River. So it's running on time. And I-80 parallels it. Speed limit's 80, so you can go pretty fast. So he pulled over to different places for the pullovers, and we banged off a few shots here and there. Crossing the Truckee River again. Okay, and then we went to a little place called Floriston. And the westbound California Zephyr was running 5.5 hours late, according to Julie. And when it showed up, it finally showed up and had this UP engine on it, SD70AH number 8849. And that's the only trains we saw in 2 days of being on Donner Pass. And I guess, I don't know what's going on. I guess maybe it's a nighttime railroad now. Anyway, when we're waiting at Florissant and waiting for that train to come by, it's entertaining to watch the rafters coming down. And it looked like most of them are all professional with helmets on and proper gear, knew what they're doing, except for this guy here. And he wiped out, and they didn't have, no, his girlfriend were just, I don't know what to do. I guess they finally figured the water wasn't that deep, so he walked over to the other side and left. I don't know what happened. I guess eventually got out.
I know what that feels like. Happened to me once.
Okay, then we went over to the Yosemite Mountain Sugar Pine Railroad at Fish Camp, California. Well, only way to get over there is to go through Yosemite National Park. You can't go through Yosemite National Park unless you can't go into the park unless you have reservations, which have to be made at least 30 days previously. Well, we didn't have the reservations, but so I went up there, and this is on the way towards it. So I went up and there's a long line to get into the park. So we finally got up to the ranger. Told him, I said, we're going to go to the fish camp to ride the train. And very rude about it. I said, well, I'm going to put this special sticker. I'm going to tape it inside your windshield, which means that you can, from here to you leave the park, you cannot stop, even to go to the toilet. That's about a 3.5 hour drive. Is if park ranger sees you with this sticker, you're going to get $1,000 fine the first time. It was second time, $5,000. I said, thank you very much. So we had a full tank of gas and didn't have to.
3 hours to do it.
Yeah. So anyway, we managed to bang off some shots anyway. Didn't see any park rangers. Other people doing it. But like I said, we did have reservations to ride the train, and we want to keep going. In case if the temperature dropped to 38 because of elevation, and it was even got lower than that at night. I understand. This is like 8:11 in the morning Pacific time. Okay, and then we got to Yosemite Mountain Sugar Pine Railroad. Tell you a little bit about it. It's the current railroad follows a portion of grade originally carved into the mountain by the Monterey Sugar Pine Lumber Company, early 20th century. The company originated in 1874 and organized by a different company, and had 140 miles, a 3-foot gauge track in surrounding mountains. But here's the really weird thing. They had a flume, flume was got a wooden trough with water that goes down, 54 miles long from Sugar Pine to Madera, California, because it was the most efficient way to transport rough cut lumber out of the mountains for finishing and processing the bottom of the mountain. So they practiced clear cutting, which means every tree. So everything in here is not the original. It's, they have no laws to replant after you harvest the trees. Okay, during the onset of the Depression, the lack of tree cut all the trees down. The operation closed in 1931, but the right-of-way remained. And a Stauffer family bought this whole operation in 1961 and decided to lay tracks down and create a tourist operation. It's doing pretty well. It opened in 1965. Rudy Stauffer, a guy named Rudy Stauffer. Okay, and he bought the Shea engine number 10, several logging rail cars to make coaches out of, and tons of spare parts. Okay, when during our visit, Shea number 10 was running, which is constructed in 1828 for the Pickering Lumber Company. Here's our train getting ready to leave. Okay, the number 15 was not running that day. Teresa Sweet talked to some employee in there, letting her into the engine house and bang off the shot with her cell phone camera, and they did a pretty good job.
Those engines oil burning or coal?
No, or oil. There's no coal. There's no coal. I don't know if they originally were coal. You know, California is really, really concerned about this, the fire. They did have a fire that came through. You can see, look at the trunks of those trees there. It's a common thing there, fires in this
What
area.
about the car?
This car?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell them this, well, it's a flat car, and they decided to make it look as much like a logging car as possible. So the two sides are just logs, they rough split down the middle, rough hewn logs. And you sit on them. You sit on these other rough hewn. This is a tourist thing. It's pretty neat. That's your one option. Option B, you can ride in these covered cars. Again, flat cars with wooden, heavy duty wooden boards attached to them. And they also have these Model Ts. Let me make sure I got it right. These are these original cars. I don't have it. Yeah, okay, they have, this railroad has 3 Ford Model A's, which were fitted with flange wheels by the West Side Lumber Company, you know, many, many years ago when in operation. And they call them Jenny rail cars. They use a regular excursion service when they don't, when the ridership is low rather than fire up a steam engine. And it looks to me like they're flathead engines, obviously. I would say they're probably the original 4-cylinder flathead engine. So at 11, the train left right at 11 o'clock, full train. Here's some of their equipment. They have a bunch of derelict diesels and other stuff. I just bang off a few shots.
Did those Ford cars have the horns on them, the good old Model A horn? Did you?
No, I didn't hear any horns. I
Okay,
didn't hear the Ooga with Claxton horn, right?
there you go.
But we went right through this original right of way that was built, 100 years ago, longer than that. They just left it intact and just relayed the rails down. But you can see the scorched bark on the trees, and they have all these trees are laying down from really bad weather. About halfway, they stop at this big picnic grove, get out and stretch your feet and take some pictures. Very nice. There's a picture of it.
Excuse me,
Yes,
Al, it's Val. What gauge is this line?
3 foot.
Thank you.
And they have these at nighttime or other, they have these, they have country western shows and other things for the kids.
So all this forest growth is second and third growth trees?
Yeah, they just, like you say, what people did back then, they cut every tree down and left it bare, for the rains with, terrible erosion and everything. Like they did that in West Virginia at Cass, the same thing, They
Right.
didn't care. So anyway, we loaded back up to go back to fish camp. Working upgrade. Then we went to Death Valley. And just, and it's only about an hour and 15 minutes west of Las Vegas, the park is. I'm not gonna show you everything. I got, you're only showing a very small portion of the, but anyway, they have a nice museum there. It's right behind the Furnace Creek Ranch. And we had to look for it for a while, but you know, I ever watched the 20 Mule Team shows? Was it right? No, Death Valley shows when there's a kid on the team. Death Valley Days. Well, this is the actual real McCoy. This is the 20 Mule Team wagon train built in 1885. Well, they dug, I had to look up borax. I don't know what borax was, but it was used for washing clothes, and our mothers probably used it too. And they hauled this borax from Death Valley to Mojave, 165 miles. It took 10 days. And this is the actual, they left it after they put the railroad in, they just left it, abandoned it, and left this whole thing in the desert. Somebody went and retrieved it. But you know, it's no water, no rain, so it doesn't deteriorate.
Well, borax is still taken out of there, isn't there? It's still.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, it's big. It's a huge amount of borax. So anyway, so the new and improved this Odina, they got a steam tractor with a vertical boiler with these big, huge steel wheels with treads on them. It was so slow, they went back to mules. And this was left of the desert too to rot, but it did rot. But a 20 mule team is misleading because it wasn't 20 mules, it was 18 mules and 2 horses on the lead because the horses are smart enough. And the mules, you just do what the horses, you know, just follow the horses. But this Odina, it's pretty neat, pretty neat. And they had 3 railroads to in the Death Valley one time. The Pacific Coast Borax Company, and then there was the Carson and Colorado Railroad, and the Tonopah Tidewater Railroad. And they provided service for the mining companies, but also a lot of tourists came in. I don't think tourists came in here in the summer, but they came in here. It's pretty interesting. I didn't show you any scenery slides because we'd be here to midnight, but there's Death Valley. It's beautiful. We spent 2 days there, and we actually drove down the 20 Mule Team roads and all that. You can see where they dug some of the borax out. So, and this is the Death Valley 3-foot gauge 280 number 2. And and one more thing I'm gonna show you here. They have these stagecoaches. Man, goodness, they had a dozen of them. I mean, they're the real thing. Each one has a size. This stage operated from San Diego to Oakland, and from 1884 to 1905. I think there's dozens and dozens of them, and there are all kinds of other stuff that you can't show. It's getting kind of late, but anyway, I'm gonna close with saying one thing. California's a nice place to visit, but I wouldn't want to live there. This is one of the reasons why. And this is the price of gas. This is like a month ago, 2 months ago, the 578 for regular unleaded. So that's it.
Well, thank you, Alex. Yeah.